While I was in vacation in Panama for the last 30 days, I come into contact with a youngish couple, late 30s probably, and their two kids. They're both from South Africa, and they've left South Africa because of issues. And let me pull this screen up here. Growing exodus depriving South Africa of wealth and skills. Figures show that more people have been leaving the country than in previous years. Probably ask yourself, why? Well, I'll tell you what he told me. Over a few beers, he basically said that he's an engineer by trade and that living in South Africa is extremely dangerous. And compounding on that, the corruption there is just more than he can just take. More than, I guess, we can actually, unless you were an actual South African, that you could understand how bad it is. So he picked up where he was, pretty much left everything he owned. You just brought 2 bags each for a total of 8 bags, and flew all the way to Panama and became a resident. He's still working on his work permit, but for the most part, he was there for about 4 months. So I'm not going into total detail what he said, but you could tell that he didn't really want to leave. He's a South African, but considering what's going on there right now, there was a political leader there that said, yes, we should kill the white population of South Africa because of what happened in the past. Now that wasn't his reason, but he left because he didn't say anything like that. But he just said he left because of corruption, and the government being so corrupt, and the taxes being so high that he was like, "There's no way I can't, foresee, raising a family here." So picked up, went to Panama. So let's go over this article real quick. And there's like two other articles that popped up here. So this is from 18 April 2019. It says, South Africa does not collect data on numbers of people emigrating. They should. The figures have not been obtained from the countries to which South Africans immigrate, which record the number of residents born in foreign countries. Interesting fact about Panama, there is no South African embassy in Panama. And he said that was a big reason why he went there. I didn't really press him on why, but who knows. Major destinations for South African immigrants can be divided into 3 categories. The 5 large English-speaking countries, UK, US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The UAE and other developed countries of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Never heard of that one. In 2000, there were an estimated 435 South African nationals in these 3 combined. Our best estimate for 2017, extrapolating from earlier data in some cases, that the number has increased by almost 90% to about 820,000, with 76% of residents in the Big 5 and a little over 12 in the Gulf and almost 12 in the OECD countries for which the data are available. Wow, that's a lot. That's a big exodus. Let's see if they get into why. With the exception of only 2 years, 2011 and 2014, which registered small declines, there has been a steady net growth in the number of South African immigrants recorded in these country categories since 2000, with a particularly strong net increase since 2015, with over 60,000 South Africans emigrating between then and 2017. These figures represent the total number of South Africans living overseas. That is emigration net of return migration. The number of South African-born immigrants in the Big 5 almost doubled between 2000 and 2017 to over 624,000, an average net increase of about 1,500 people per month. The increase has been rapid in Australia, with numbers increasing by some 6,207 per annual between 2000 and 2017, an average of more than 500 every month. It has been slowest in Canada at 28%. Between 2000 and 2017. In the last few years, the number has been rising by only a few hundred a year. The increase has been constant in all countries except 2015, when the numbers of South Africans in the UK and the US accelerated significantly. Okay, so we saw that article. I read through it. There's really no much. It just says a lot of data, and It's for you data-minded folks who can, Google South African Exodus. And here we go this is MS Money. This is 2019, August 20th. Johannesburg. There have been claims that middle-class income South Africans are leaving the country in droves, which would seem somewhat true. According to my small sample size, there are some indicators that people are emigrating due to concerns around safety, lack of opportunities, and state of politics, which the gentleman there I talked to for a good 2 hours totally agreed. FNB property economist Simfamandla Mkwanzi says all the houses sold in South Africa is estimated that 13.5% of those from people who are leaving the country. That figure, which is from the second quarter of this year, has actually doubled over the last 2 years. We're definitely seeing an increase in the middle class, specifically of people disposing their houses to emigrate. Huh. Interesting. It backs up to what the gentleman I was talking to had concerns about. He left his home and all of his pretty much property there and just booked it. Not every concern about the country and its economy is translating to outright immigration. Global market research group New World Health estimates around 300 high net worth individuals have been leaving South Africa every year for the last decade. That's a lot. But there's increasing evidence that middle class earners are also looking for greener pastures. Analysts warn that while South Africa has unique economic challenges, countries the world over are facing global headwinds. With property prices down, experts are encouraging buyers to cash in while it's still affordable. Now here's another article. 3 scary graphs show South Africa's emigrating trends. This is from 9 June 2019. While it's difficult to equate South Africa's declining GDP to a brain drain, which would back up to what my guy I was talking to, there is an extremely strong inverse correlation. There is, according to the Enterprise Observatory of South Africa's Johannes, who said that the country's decline towards the ranks of the lower middle income countries will likely continue alongside increasing high-skilled emigration, which, like I was saying, the guy was an engineer. That's a pretty high on the totem pole of jobs. And South Africa just lost one. In 1995, South Africa's per capita GDP was 61.1% higher than the average per capita GDP of upper and middle income countries, Wessel said. In 2017, South Africa was no longer a leader in upper middle income countries, but a laggard. The South African per capita GDP had shrunk to 75.7%. Whoa! On the average per capita GDP of the upper middle income countries. During the same time, the number of South African-born residents in high-income countries has increased from 307,000 to more than doubling to 745,000. And you can see this graph right here. Wow, it's the index of South African-born stock in high-income countries. So around 2001, 2002, hit the nexus right there, and it just shot up to where South Africa's per capita GDP as percent of average income per capita GDP of upper and middle income countries started to go down. That's kind of interesting to see. As people were leaving, the GDP just, and that makes a lot of sense here, because while this number goes up, this number has to come down. Not necessarily, but it did. However, Wessel's warned that correlations don't prove causality. Kinda. Quote, one cannot therefore say without further analysis that immigration to high-income countries is causing South Africa to be radically economically transformed from a leader to a laggard. Likewise, one cannot deduce the SA's glide against the upper middle income countries is the cause of the driver of immigration to high income countries. However, the correlation is extremely significant enough to confidently deduce that if one goes up, the other will go down. And you see that right here. As this number goes down, this number goes up. Wessel said that the resident Cyril Ramaphosa seems to be aware of the correlation, indicating during the election campaign that he wanted to tie white South Africans to trees to prevent them from emigrating. Huh. Yeah. I can't imagine why you'd want to leave a country that they don't want you to leave. Huh. Interesting. HICs typically have high standards of granting residence permits, said Wessels, meaning that the majority of South Africans finding permanent residence in the HICs are likely either professionally qualified, like the guy I was talking to, or possessing artisan skills, hairdressers, plumbers. The below figure, based on UN data, shows that the exodus of skilled immigrants to HICs increased linearly from 1990 to 2017. Let's see that graph. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can see that. That's definitely, sometimes statistics don't lie. Here we go. Engineers and IT professionals. Wessels said that there are clear indications that the brain drain is continuing and even accelerating. For instance, Emmanuel Wintergust, head of Skills Assessment Business Unit of Engineers Australia, confirmed to EOSA that there have been a doubling in the number of South African engineers requesting a skills assessment in order to be allowed to practice in Australia. Wessels also noted that My Broadband's 2019 IT survey found that 46% of IT professionals are planning to emigrate or to seek work abroad. And like I said, what the guy I was talking to, he says political and economic concerns. That was pretty much his number one. Crime was up there. Better living standards. Panama has a pretty good living standard if you got money. Better future for his children. Yep, totally agree. Affirmative action and BEE. I don't know what BEE means, but the thing is, if you got skills in a country like Panama, you can find a job. Better jobs prospects overseas. Absolutely. Panama is going through a boom cycle of construction. So, of course, they're going to do it. And lower tax. Of course. Panama, for a long time, has been coaxing people to emigrate to Panama and take up residency on the guise of lower taxes, which is somewhat true. It says the reason why these professionals were considering alternative countries rather than to participate in the prospects of the 41R included political and economic concerns, high crime levels, and lower living standards than in other countries. Envisaging a better future for their children, as well as constraints of a BEE and affirmative action on job and business opportunities in South Africa, also ranked high. So in conclusion, there's a lot of bad things going on in South Africa. Now, I didn't delve into that because, well, just didn't delve into it. And I don't want to make this video about the elephant in the room, if you will. But the gentleman I was talking to in Panama, he didn't necessarily allude to the fact that he's leaving because of issues such as that. But what he did say was the political and economic realities in South Africa are continuing to decline. He said that for him to get anything done with the government, he has to bribe constantly members of, just the bureaucracy to get anything done. So he had enough of it, and him and his wife got together and said, looked down the list of countries and said, well, we'll go to Panama. So, as you can see, South Africa's economy is declining with the emigration of high-skilled workers that were in South Africa. Now they're in other countries, such as Panama, United States, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, etc. So, what does that say? I don't really know, but it's something to keep an eye on. And I just thought it was a cool thing to talk about because I have never met a South African before. Really nice guy. His kids were nice too. So, hey, it is what it is. So, hopefully YouTube doesn't get all wacky about this video. I'll see you next time.